At 6:37, Hans von Spakovsky is joining us on the Newsmaker Hotline. Hans, always great to have you on. I was a little surprised and disappointed to see that the Biden administration, the Supreme Court, on Monday, this was yesterday, basically siding with the Biden administration, allowing federal immigration agents to remove that razor wire that Texas state officials have set up along sections of the U.S.-Mexico border. It was a 5-4 vote, and this is bad for people who want legal immigration. Were you surprised by the Supreme Court doing this?
Well, unfortunately not. I mean, I'm disappointed too, but what you had was Chief Justice Roberts, who's always the weak link in, unfortunately, too many cases, going over and siding with the liberals. And unfortunately, he brought along Justice Amy Coney Barrett also. It was a 5-4 decision. You know, Thomas, Alito, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh didn't want to grant this. Remember, it was an emergency appeal.
Yeah.
Asking for an emergency stay. So the case is still going to continue, but, you know, the effect of it is, unfortunately, that the 30 miles of razor wire that they deployed along the Texas border, which would be, as you know, 100% effective in preventing illegal aliens from coming across through the Eagle Pass area, is now going to get dismantled. And listen, the way you know that the Biden administration's claim that this interferes with their ability to enforce immigration law is a total fabrication is, guess whose side the National Border Patrol Council, which represents Border Patrol agents, guess whose side they were on?
Right.
They were on the side of Texas.
Yep. Texas Attorney General Paxton said in a statement that the Supreme Court's temporary order allows Biden to continue his illegal effort to aid the foreign invasion of America, going on to say the destruction of Texas's border barriers will not help enforce the law or keep American citizens safe. He says this fight is not over, and he looks forward to defending our state's sovereignty. Can the state of Texas, I think I know the answer to this, Hans, but can the state of Texas say, you know what, screw it, we're going to do this anyway, states' rights?
Well, they could try. They could try, but then they would be in defiance of the federal courts and federal law. Do they want to risk doing that? I don't know. That's a pretty big step to take. I tell you one thing, and this is important for people to understand why the Supreme Court's decision was wrong. Look, nobody argues with the fact that the federal government has the preeminent authority over federal immigration law, and that prevents a state from doing something that conflicts with federal immigration law. So if the state of California, for example, started saying, oh, guess what, all these illegal aliens, we're going to legalize them, make them citizens, they obviously can't do that. But here, Texas isn't doing anything that conflicts with federal immigration law. In fact, they're enforcing it by preventing illegal aliens from crossing the border. That's what federal law says you're supposed to do. It's the Biden administration that's violating federal immigration law by refusing to stop illegal aliens from coming across the border. And so that's why the Supreme Court's decision on this was just 100% wrong.
Yeah, I would agree. And a lot of folks see this from the Biden administration as clearly just wanting as much illegal immigration as they possibly can. It's not real surprising that the president is polling so low on this topic. I've got limited time and a lot of questions. Donald Trump said this the other day in New Hampshire out on the campaign trail.
Please, you're killing us. You're going to indict him right into the White House. We don't want to have that. No, it's terrible. I mean, we get treated terribly. It's unbelievable. And, you know, that's a two-way street. That can happen to them also. It's
all right. Dangerous. So that is former President Donald Trump, perhaps future president. You don't really know. But, you know, he's talking about how he is consistently, as you and I have spoken about many times, being indicted all the time. And that there are some people that are saying that all of these indictments, Britt Hume said this yesterday, as a matter of fact, are really galvanizing the Donald Trump support behind the former president, but also bringing along some moderates and independents and so forth. And, Hans, when you look at some of these various cases, I mean, it is so clear that these cases really do have no foundation. Let's very quickly talk about Fulton County. You and I have spoken about Fannie Willis before, and this case, the more we see how corrupt this woman is, the more Donald Trump is proven right. And just to remind people of the discussion, the Fulton County DA prosecutor, and she hired her boyfriend, gave the guy $650,000. In turn, they took all of these expensive trips together, presuming, using that money. Now, she's innocent till proven guilty, but there's a lot of people, even on the left, saying this proves that Donald Trump was right when he said that this woman was corrupt.
Well, yeah, and in fact, it's now been shown that her lover and the guy she hired was paying with taxpayer money, did in fact pay for those trips, because the lawyer's wife, remember, Fannie was having an affair with a married man. The wife has just filed in the divorce case, and it includes credit card receipts proving that the lawyer was purchasing and paying for these luxury trips. There's going to be a hearing on the 15th of February by the judge supervising the criminal prosecution of Donald Trump about all of these charges. I don't think he's going to have any choice other than to remove her from the case. And frankly, I think under the rules, he's got to recuse the entire office of the Fulton County DA.
Right. So
none of the prosecutors there can work on this case.
And here's my other question. There's a lot of work that's already been done. Well, if it's now proven that they are so corrupt that they've got to take all of these prosecutors and the entire office off of the case, what do you do with the work that's already been done by this corrupt office?
The judge would refer the case to a different county's DA's office, and that DA's office would have to re-review everything that's been done and make his or her own independent decision on whether they want to continue the prosecution.
Hans von Spakovsky, legal analyst with the Heritage Foundation, joining us talking about a number of different things, but right now the situation regarding all of those indictments against former President Donald Trump. And, a lot of these prosecutors, whether we're talking about, Fannie Willis or the Manhattan DA, Alvin Bragg, it feels like just, this rogues gallery of corruption, the New York Attorney General as well, Letitia James. It's just this rogues gallery of corruption and Donald Trump haters. Talk a little bit about, because they brought this up on Fox News yesterday, about the Alvin Bragg case and how that seems to be falling apart.
Well, it should fall apart because it was based on a complete misinterpretation of the law. And in fact, he was trying to say that he, as a local DA, could enforce a supposed federal provision of federal campaign finance law. In fact, I used to be on the FEC, the Federal Election Commission, that enforces federal campaign finance law. And what he was claiming was a violation of federal law. It isn't.
Yeah.
And it isn't, because neither the FEC nor the Justice Department ever even considered prosecuting Donald Trump for this supposed violation, because it wasn't a violation of the law. So Alvin Bragg just didn't have a case to start with. And what you have is all of these Democratic AGs, Democratic DAs using law enforcement, abusing it for political purposes. That is the kind of thing you see in third world countries. We're not supposed to see it in the United States, and yet they are doing it because they don't like Donald Trump and they don't want to see him elected president. If he had gone into plain retirement without any plans to run again, I doubt a single one of these cases would have gotten filed.
Yeah, and the Alvin Bragg case, the Manhattan DA, those were the supposed money paid to Stormy Daniels to keep quiet about the alleged affair. And, you know, the Letitia James story out there as well, where she actually ran part of her platform was indicting Donald Trump. Here's my question, though. Let's cut to the chase, because I think we can all agree here on WTN, a very conservative talk station, is that a lot of these cases, all of these cases, there's a lot of holes through them. Do you think the average person, there's been different polling out there that shows that, you know, if Donald Trump is indicted, well, then a lot or a significant part of the support that Donald Trump is now enjoying will evaporate, some of it anyway. Other polling shows that people don't care if he's indicted because they know that a lot of this stuff is BS. Do you have a gauge from, you know, what you've seen in the research to show what impact it would have on a general election if Donald Trump, just looking at the numbers, if Donald Trump is convicted of any of these?
Oh, I think any election is probably going to be extremely close, assuming he's the nominee. And when you're talking about a couple of percentage point difference between two candidates, and that would probably be what it amounts to, I think any kind of conviction, which you might get before the November election, is going to cut into that lead. Look, all it needs to do is affect, 2, 3, 4% of voters, and Donald Trump loses
in a very specific district, by the way. So
yeah.
And even when you talk about a conviction, and I mentioned this earlier, some of these judges and some of these juries, depending on which case we're talking about, they're in very anti-Trump districts, and so he could be convicted, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he was guilty. It just means that you've got a bunch of judges and a bunch of juries that are incredibly biased.
No, that's exactly right. These DAs file these cases in places where they knew they could get a conviction of Donald Trump, no matter what the facts or the law is. And that applies, by the way, also to the special counsel Jack Smith. Remember, Donald Trump is now a resident of Florida. So if you're going to criminally prosecute him under federal law, where would you normally prosecute or defendant? Where he lives. And yet, what does Jack Smith do? He files his prosecution in the District of Columbia.
Yeah.
He did that because any veteran of the Justice Department, including me, will tell you, they know how biased D.C. juries are, and he knew he could get a conviction. He knew he would get a biased judge, which is the case, if he filed against Trump in D.C., and he wouldn't get that if he filed in Florida.
So many questions, so little time. Hans von Spakovsky, thank you for joining us here on Nashville's Morning News.